Snow ticked against the windshield as Evan Brooks steered his old sedan down Queens Boulevard. The wipers squeaked back and forth, smearing more than they cleared. Streetlights blurred on the wet glass and dirty slush hissed beneath the tires. The car smelled like coffee French fries and cheap pine from the air freshener hanging from the mirror. The heater rattled under the dash, but pushed out enough warmth to keep his toes awake. Evan rolled his shoulders once and exhaled. Long day, small stack of cash. The math was as familiar as the ache in his back. On the passenger seat, a crumpled paper bag held his last tip, $1 and a few coins. A toy catalog lay beside it, corners bent, whole pages circled in blue crayon. Leo had gone through it the night before, serious as a scientist, picking out rockets and robots, with his tongue poking from the corner of his mouth. Evan turned into the alley beside his building and eased the car into its spot. He cut the engine. The sudden quiet let in the distant rush of traffic and the soft hiss of falling snow. For a moment he stayed where he was, hands resting on the wheel, watching his breath fog the glass. In the rearview mirrors he caught his own face. Mid-30s, tired eyes, dark stubble. He looked like someone who could use a week of sleep. He gave the mirror a small, lopsided nod as if to say, "You are still here," then grabbed the bag and the catalog and stepped out into the cold. The stairwell smelled like boiled cabbage and someone else's fried chicken. Evan took the stairs 2 at a time. His key stuck for a second in the lock before it turned. The apartment was dark except for a wash of blue from the television. Leo lay sprawled on the couch, half under a blanket, one sock on and the other missing. Lego bricks littered the rug in front of him. On the screen, an animated snowman waved in silence. Its song turned down to a whisper. Evan set the bag on the counter and thumbed the remote. The TV blinked off. The apartment settled into a softer quiet full of pipe clicks in the wall and the hum of the fridge. He toed off his shoes and crossed to the couch. "Hey, buddy," he said softly. Leo's eyes fluttered open. His hair stuck up on one side. He blinked twice and then smiled when he focused on Evan. "You smell like French fries," Leo said. Evan laughed under his breath. "That is what happens when you sit next to them all night. Did you bring any?" "I ate the last one in the parking lot." Leo let out a theatrical sigh, then scooted over. Evan tucked the blanket around him. On the coffee table, a small red knit scarf lay in a loose coil, its edges a little frayed. "You were supposed to wear this today," Evan said, picking it up. "It makes my neck itchy," Leo replied. "It is supposed to keep you warm, not happy," Evan said. He looped the scarf loosely around Leo's neck anyway. "Besides, you look good in red." "You always say that." "Because it keeps being true." For a while they sat without saying much. Snow tapped at the thin window by the radiator. A faint draft slid in around the frame and curled along the floor. Across the street, a car rolled past headlights, smearing across the ceiling, then gone. Leo's gaze drifted to the toy catalog on the table. The pages were crowded with circles and messy stars. "I circled some stuff," he said. "I saw." Evan pulled the catalog closer. "You picked everything that has rockets or wheels." "That is how you know it is good," Leo said. Evan flipped to a page with a giant building set. "This one is cool. You can build a whole city." Leo leaned in. "If I had that, I would build 2 houses," he said. "One for us and one for Grandma, and a bridge in the middle." "A bridge," Evan repeated. "Why a bridge?" "So you do not have to drive so far," Leo answered. "Isdam inga by city reparedirud." Something tightened behind Evan's ribs. He closed the catalog and set it aside, then smoothed the blanket over Leo's legs. "Pretty smart," he said. Leo studied his face for a long second. "Dad." "Yeah." "You ever get lonely when I am asleep?" The question was quiet, but it landed heavy. Evan looked at his son, at the wide, serious eyes and the tiny crease between his brows. "I have you," Evan said. "That covers a lot. But when I am at school, or at Grandma's, or here but sleeping." Leo picked at a loose thread on the blanket. "Sometimes you talk to the toaster." Evan blinked. "You heard that, huh?" "You asked it why it hates bagels," Leo said. "To be fair, it does," Evan replied. He tried a smile, but Leo did not smile back. The boy's fingers kept worrying the thread. "I just do not want you to be sad," Leo said. "You make my lunch and you help with homework and you go to work a lot. I think maybe you need someone to talk to, too." Evan let his hands hang loose between his knees. He pictured the stack of bills on the counter, the laundry basket in the hallway, the calendar on the fridge filled with shifts and school events. Somewhere in there, he knew there used to be room for other people. "I am okay," he said quietly. "Really, there is already a lot of noise in my head." "Maybe it would be better with another person talking," Leo said. "Not just you and the toaster and the radio." Evan had no clever answer. He reached for Leo's foot under the blanket and squeezed gently. "How about this?" he said. "I will try to talk to more humans and fewer appliances." "Deal." Leo thought about it, then nodded. "Okay, but you have to actually try." "I will," Evan said. Leo's eyes drooped. His hand loosened its grip on the blanket. Within a minute, his breathing smoothed out soft and steady. Evan adjusted the red scarf so it sat snug under Leo's chin, then stood and turned off the lamp. The room fell into darkness except for a thin bar of orange streetlight sliding through the curtains. On the window glass, snow crept down in crooked lines, catching that light just enough to glow. The week slid by in a blur of shifts and snow. By Friday evening, Evan was back under fluorescent lights, this time in the warehouse in Long Island City. The loading dock doors were rolled down against the cold, but a thread of icy air still snuck in at the bottom and wound around his ankles. He stacked the last box on a pallet and stepped back. His shoulders ached. Someone yelled goodnight from across the concrete floor. The echo bounced off metal shelving and faded. In the small break room, the vending machine hummed beside a humming refrigerator. A tiny artificial tree sat in the corner with 3 crooked ornaments hanging on one side. Evan dropped into a plastic chair at the table and rubbed his hands together. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. Tara slid into the chair across from him, her hair shoved into a messy bun, safety vest unzipped. She cracked open a can of soda and took a long drink. "You look like you lost a fight with a forklift," she said. "Forklift is fine," Evan replied. "Floor 1. Tara snorted and kicked his boot lightly under the table. Her eyes dropped to the folded toy catalog peeking from his jacket pocket. "You still carrying that thing around?" she asked. Evan glanced down and pulled it out halfway. Blue crayon circles crowded the glossy pages. "Leo's list," he said. "He has big dreams. And his dad has 2 jobs and a back made of sadness," Tara said. "You working Christmas Eve too?" "Rideshare," Evan answered. "Better tips when people feel guilty." She shook her head slowly. "You ever do anything that is not work or Legos?" "I sleep sometimes," Evan said. "Very exciting stuff." Tara rolled her eyes. "When was your last date?" Evan thought about it. For a second he saw his wife's face in a hospital room, all white sheets and blinking monitors, then pushed the image away. Before that he remembered a cheap diner, a shared slice of pie, her laughing at something he said. "Long time," he said. "Like months, years, presidential administrations," Tara pressed. He shrugged. "Leo is 6. So, presidential administrations," she decided. "That is tragic. You are not that broken." "Thanks for the ringing endorsement," Evan said. Tara leaned forward, elbows on the table. "There is this thing my cousin told me about. Holiday pairings. You sign up, they match you with someone in the city for a Christmas week blind date. They pick the place, all you do is show up and be charming." "Those are 2 separate problems," Evan said. "1, I do not know how to sign up for anything that is not a shift. 2, charming costs extra." She grinned and reached across the table. "Give me your phone." "I need it. It is my office." "You can have it back in 5 minutes," she said. "Trust me." "That is the phrase people say right before they ruin your life," Evan replied, but he pulled the phone from his pocket and slid it over. Tara unlocked it with the code she had once watched him type and pretended to forget. She opened the app store, her fingers moving fast. "You have like 3 apps," she said. "Maps, rideshare, and weather." "Works fine," Evan said. "We are advancing you into this decade," she muttered. "Here it is. Holiday pairings." The app loaded all red and gold graphic snowflakes drifting across the screen. Tara read the text out loud, putting on a mock announcer voice. "Hand-picked connections in New York's most magical season. Let us pick the place. You bring your real self." "Sounds expensive," Evan said. "First match is free," Tara replied. "They want you hooked." She snapped a quick selfie of him before he could duck. "Hey," he said. She ignored him, cropping the picture. Leo's birthday balloons were blurred in the background. She tilted the phone and frowned. "Okay, this is not a romance novel cover, but you look like a decent human," she said. "That plays well." "What are you putting in there?" Evan asked. "Name, age, borough, occupation." She paused. "Do I put warehouse or rideshare?" "Neither sounds like a dream," Evan said. She typed drive people and lift heavy things and clicked next. "There," she said. "Now we pick the vibe. Cozy bar, coffee shop, or fancy dinner." "Coffee," Evan said quickly. "Coffee is safe." Tara's thumb hovered. Then she looked up at him, eyes narrowing. "Or," she said, "we click this one that says rooftop restaurant with skyline view. Only available for premium matches." She tapped it before he could protest. "You deserve to look at something besides loading docks and traffic lights for one night." "I am going to show up in my one good shirt, and they are going to escort me back to Queens," Evan said. "They will be lucky to have you," Tara replied. "All set. They will send you the match and details by tomorrow. Holiday magic delivered to your very own discount smartphone. She slid the phone back to him. His screen flashed a confirmation. A spinning snowflake circled for a second, then a message popped up. Thank you for joining Holiday Pairings, Evan. Your Christmas week match is being prepared. He locked the screen and slipped the phone away. You know I am not actually going to go, right? He said. Tara popped the tab on another soda. You also said you would never work nights, and yet, here you are. People lie to themselves all the time. He shook his head, but there was a faint tug at the corner of his mouth. On his way out after the shift, he passed the loading dock door. Someone had taped a strip of tinsel to the metal. The reflection on its surface was warped, but he could still see his own face stretched along it. For a beat he paused, then kept walking into the cold. The next afternoon the email arrived while he was wiping crumbs off the kitchen counter. The subject line blinked from his phone screen. Your holiday pairing is ready. He dried his hands and opened it. A stylized logo, loaded first, then neat lines of text. Date December 24th. Time 7:30 p.m. Location Aurora on 5th Midtown. Rooftop dining holiday menu. He stared at the name. The small picture below showed a restaurant under glass strings of lights tangled over a view of the city. Of course, he murmured. Leo padded into the kitchen in socked feet, rubbing his eyes. Who are you talking to? The boy asked. Myself, Evan said. And maybe a very fancy restaurant. Leo climbed onto a chair. Is that where rich people eat? I think rich people have places above this place, Evan said. This is where people go to pretend they are rich for one night. He turned the phone so Leo could see the tiny picture. The boy whistled softly. Looks like a spaceship, Leo said. Are you driving someone there? Something like that, Evan said. Later, when Leo was in his room sorting Lego pieces by color, Evan took an ironing board from the closet. He set it up in the living room and plugged in the old iron. The metal plate sputtered and clicked as it heated. He pulled his best shirt from the hanger. The fabric was a little thin at the elbows. The collar was worn pale along the edges. He laid it out and passed the iron over the wrinkles, steam rising in short breaths. The hiss covered the faint traffic noise outside. The radio on the shelf played a soft carol. Evan hummed without thinking. The room smelled of starch and warm cotton. He buttoned the shirt and stood in front of the bathroom mirror. The light flickered once, then steadied. He tried a few smiles. Each one felt like it belonged to somebody else. Hi, I am Evan, he said to his reflection. I drive a lot and lift boxes for fun. He winced. Hi, I am Evan. I have a 6-year-old son who can beat you at building anything. Better, but still strange. Leo's face appeared in the doorway, framed by chipped paint. Who are you talking to? Leo asked. The guy in the mirror, Evan said. He looks nervous, Leo observed. Does he? Evan said. Leo came closer, studied the reflection, then looked at the man beside him. You always tell me to be myself when I am scared, Leo said. You can be yourself too. Evan met his own eyes in the mirror, then glanced down at Leo. Is myself good enough for a spaceship restaurant? He asked. If they do not think so, they are wrong, Leo said simply. Evan felt a small tightness in his chest ease. All right, he said. I will try that. On Saturday, he took a different route between rides. Near the Upper East Side, traffic slowed by a bus stop. The glass shelter was dusted with snow. A memory tugged at him, something about a girl sitting alone there on a freezing night years back. No coat, no phone. He remembered pulling over. He remembered a red scarf, his hands on the steering wheel, while she tried to breathe. The light changed. A horn honked behind him. He eased his foot onto the gas and the moment slipped away like a reflection in rain. That night, after Leo fell asleep with a Lego figure still clutched in one hand, Evan sat at the kitchen table with the confirmation email open on his phone. The screen cast a pale rectangle of light on his fingers. Aurora on 5th, he read out loud, testing the sound. He closed the email and set the phone down. Outside, snow brushed softly against the window, clinging for a second to the glass before melting into thin trails of water. Christmas Eve came with a gray sky and a steady curtain of snow. It piled on the fire escape outside the kitchen window and softened the city's usual honking and shouting into something quieter. Evan stood at the stove watching scrambled eggs firm up in a pan. Leo sat at the table, feet swinging, red scarf already around his neck, pajamas still on. Is Santa allowed to come to apartments that smell like onions? Leo asked. This is the smell of culinary artistry, Evan said. Santa loves it. Leo wrinkled his nose, then eyed the toaster with suspicion. Evan slid bread into it and pressed the lever. The coils glowed orange behind the metal grates. You are not allowed to yell at it today, Leo said. Christmas truce. I will negotiate, Evan replied. The toaster popped on the first try. The bread came out only slightly more brown on one side. Evan raised his brows at Leo. See that, he said. Peace on earth. They ate with the television murmuring from the living room, a parade drifting across the screen. Leo's attention bounced between the marching bands and his father's face. "Are you working tonight?" he asked Virdzal through a mouthful of egg. "Not the warehouse," Evan said. "Not rideshare either. Tonight I am doing something else." Leo chewed slowly. "The spaceship restaurant," he said. Evan glanced at the email printout folded on the counter. He had printed it at the warehouse office because something about paper felt more solid than a notification on a screen. "Yeah," he said. "That." "Who are you meeting again?" Leo asked. "I do not know," Evan answered. "That is the point. She does not know me either." Leo frowned. "What if she is mean?" "Then I eat a very good dessert and come home," Evan said. "And I never have to see her again." Leo seemed to accept this. He finished his toast and wiped his hands on a napkin. "Grandma is making cookies," he said. "She said I can put on as many sprinkles as I want." "That sounds dangerous," Evan replied. "Make sure some of them land on the cookies." They bundled up after breakfast. Evan zipped Leo's coat to his chin and tucked the red scarf in tight. The hallway outside their apartment smelled like laundry detergent and someone's strong perfume. On the subway to Brooklyn, Leo pressed his nose to the fogged window, drawing little hearts and stick figures with his fingertip. Evan held the pole and watched his son's reflection float over the darkness of the tunnel. At his mother's building, the warmth hit them as soon as they stepped into the lobby. A small tree blinked in the corner, blinking lights reflecting in the shiny tile. Evan's mother opened the door before he knocked. She smelled like vanilla and flower apron dusted in white. "You are late," she said, pulling Leo inside for a hug. "My cookie assistant is in high demand." Leo giggled and slipped out of his boots. Evan handed over Leo's backpack. "His pajamas are in here. Bedtime at 9. Please make sure he does not eat an entire pound of sugar." "No promises," his mother said. Her eyes softened when she looked back at Evan. "You sure you do not want to stay for dinner?" "I have a thing," he said. Her eyebrows rose. "A thing. A date," he said. The word felt strange on his tongue. She smiled in a way that made him feel 12 and hopeful and foolish all at once. "Good," she said. "Wear that shirt I bought you that one Christmas. The one that does not look like you ironed it in the dark." "I did iron it," he said, in some kind of light. She kissed his cheek and shooed him toward the door. Leo ran over and wrapped his arms around his waist. "Call me after," Leo said into his coat. "I will probably be asleep," Evan said. "Call anyway. I want to know if she is nice." Evan patted the back of his son's head. "Deal." Outside, the afternoon was already slipping into blue. By the time Evan rode the train back to Queens and changed into the pressed shirt, the sky had gone dark. He stood in front of the mirror again, tying and retying the same old tie until it sat straight. His fingers were clumsy. The knot was not perfect, but it was close. He slid the small wrapped book into his coat pocket. The brown paper crinkled under his fingertips. On the back of the wrapping, Leo had drawn 2 stick figures in marker 1, tall 1, small, both with spiky hair. The drive into Manhattan was slow. Snow had turned the bridge into a blur of white, the river below a band of dull steel. On the radio, a man with a smooth voice sang about being home for Christmas. Evan watched the lines of red brake lights stretch ahead of him and tried not to think about turning around. Fifth Avenue was crowded with people in wool coats and glossy boots. Store windows glowed with elaborate displays, mechanical elves and golden reindeer moving behind glass. Evan found a spot in a cramped parking garage that cost more than he wanted to think about, locked the car, and pulled his collar up against the wind. Aurora on Fifth rose above the street, its glass facade catching every light. The entrance was set back beneath an awning, where a doorman in a dark coat stood, hands tucked into his sleeves. Evan wiped his shoes on the mat and stepped inside. Warmth and the scent of pine, and something citrus wrapped around him. The lobby was all polished stone and quiet jazz. A hostess station sat near a bank of elevators. "Good evening," the hostess said with a practiced smile. "Do you have a reservation?" "Holiday pairings," Evan said. His voice sounded slightly smaller than he meant it to. She looked at the list, then back up at him. "Yes, Mr. Brooks, your table is ready. Your guest has not arrived yet, but you are welcome to go up." He nodded. The elevator doors opened with a soft chime. Inside, the mirrored walls showed him from 3 angles tie slightly off hair, refusing to stay down. He adjusted his collar and tried to stand a little straighter. When the door slid open on the rooftop level, a wash of light and sound spilled in. The restaurant was housed under a dome of glass. Through it, the night sky and the outlines of buildings framed everything like a picture. Strings of white lights crossed overhead. Tables were dressed in white linen and small candles. A server led him to a 2-top near the glass. The view snapped into place when he sat. Streets bar below, taxis moving like tiny yellow beads, a massive tree glowing in the distance. He set his coat on the back of the chair and placed the wrapped book on the table, turning it so the tidy knot of string faced him. His palms felt damp. He slid them along his thighs under the table. Couples murmured around him, hands brushing, wine glasses touching. A woman laughed, the sound clear and easy. Silverware clinked against plates. Somewhere close, someone's cologne drifted by, sharp and clean. He checked his phone. 7:28, 2 minutes early. He put it face down. He watched the elevator from the corner of his eye. Each time the doors opened and someone stepped out, his chest tightened for a second. A group of friends arrived, shedding scarves. A family with teenagers passed by his table, the father pointing out the tree to his kids. At 7:35, the doors opened again. A woman in a sparkling dark dress and a cream coat stepped out. Her hair fell in loose waves around her shoulders. She scanned the room with the quick assessing glance of someone used to making choices fast. Evan felt more than saw her eyes land on him. He sat up a little straighter. She moved toward his table heels, quiet on the floor. For a heartbeat, he thought she might actually smile. Instead, her expression shifted as if someone had pulled a curtain. Whatever softness had been there vanished. She stopped short of the table and looked him over, from shoes to collar, then at the wrapped book in front of him. "You are Evan?" she asked. "Yes," he said. "Hi. It is, nice to meet you. Me this you." Her laugh was small and disbelieving. "They told me successful entrepreneur," she said, voice pitched just high enough to carry to the nearest tables. "Owner of a transportation company." Evan blinked. "I drive for rideshare," he said. "And I work nights at a warehouse. Both have transportation involved." A few people nearby went quiet. A man at the next table glanced up from his menu. The woman's mouth tilted, not quite a smile. "Right," she said. "So, you are a driver. That is what we are calling it." Heat pricked the back of Evan's neck. He felt the weight of eyes on him, like someone had turned a light directly his way. "I am honest," he said. "That is something." She sighed, impatient, like a parent dealing with a stubborn child. "I put in my preferences very clearly," she said, still loud enough for others to hear. "Ambitious, financially secure, established. I did not sign up for charity." The word hung in the air. Evan's fingers curled around the edge of the tablecloth. The fabric shifted under his touch. The wrapped book sat between them, suddenly childish. "I am sorry," he said quietly, "if I am not what you expected." An older couple to his left watched their forks paused halfway to their mouths. A young guy at the bar nudged his friend and nodded in Evan's direction. The woman shook her head, already stepping back. "No," she said, "I am not doing this." She turned, her coat flaring slightly. As she walked away, she added half to herself and half to the room. They really need to fix their algorithm. Someone at the bar let out a short laugh. Another person coughed to cover it. The sound was not cruel exactly, but it slid under Evan's skin all the same. He sat for a few seconds staring at the empty space where she had been. His heartbeat thudded in his ears. The restaurant went back to its low hum, but there was a new edge to it. He could feel the glances, quick and then gone when he looked up. He drew in a slow breath. The air smelled of roasted meat and citrus and something sweet. His chest felt tight. Carefully, he picked up the small book, turning it in his hands. The paper had a faint crease along one side now. He slipped it into his coat pocket. He stood, pulled his coat on, and reached into his wallet. He left a folded bill under the empty water glass. "Have a good evening," he said softly, though no one was close enough to hear. He walked toward the entrance, shoes quiet on the floor. His reflection moved with him along the curve of the glass wall, a dark shape against the glitter of the city. At the door, he stopped for half a second, hand hovering over the metal handle, breath clouding the pane in front of him. His fingers had just closed around the handle when the door pulled inward from the other side. Cold air rushed in, sharp and sudden. It cut through the warmth of the restaurant and slid under his collar. Evan stepped back to keep from bumping into whoever was coming in. She appeared in the doorway with snow dusted on her shoulders. For a beat, all he saw was red. A red wool coat cinched at the waist, the kind of fabric that caught the light in soft strokes. Her dark hair clung in damp curls to the collar. Snowflakes melted in them and left tiny wet sparks. Her cheeks were flushed from the wind. For a second, she just stood there, eyes adjusting to the light, chest rising and falling. The sounds of the restaurant seemed to tilt around her and then rush back into place. "Sorry," Evan said, stepping sideways, hand dropping from the door. She looked at him, really looked, not the quick scan he had felt from the woman before. Her gaze moved over his face, his coat, the way his shoulders were slightly hunched, then flicked toward the room behind him, where the waitress reset the empty table he had just left. Something tightened in her expression, not disgust, not amusement, more like recognition mixed with something uneasy. "You are leaving," she said. Her voice was low, a little rough around the edges like it had been used too hard earlier. "Yeah," Evan answered. "Wrong settings on the algorithm." He tried for a smile. It came out thin. A group of diners walked past them toward the coat check, chattering about dessert. The hostess glanced at the door, eyebrows lifting when she saw the woman in red. "Good evening," the hostess called. "Welcome to Aurora." The woman did not move. Her eyes stayed on Evan. The snow on her shoulders began to melt, drops sliding down the wool to the polished floor. "How long were you sitting there?" she asked. He frowned. "A little while. Not sure. Time is different next to $8 water." She almost smiled at that. Then the curve of her mouth faded. "I watched you," she said, "from the elevator." He went still. "I saw her walk up." The woman continued. "I saw her walk away. I saw you stand there and not chase her, not beg, not yell. You just said good evening to nobody and tried to leave." He shifted his weight. Behind her, the wind pushed more snow into the small space between door and frame, a thin line of white. "It did not seem like yelling would improve the situation," he said. Her eyes flicked past him again to the table near the window. The server was folding a new napkin, quick and efficient. "Do you have somewhere you need to be?" she asked. "Yes," he said. "Home." "Anywhere else?" she pressed. "No." She took a breath. Her fingers tightened on the strap of the small black clutch in her hand. Then she let the breath out slow. "Okay," she said. "This is going to sound strange." "Fair warning," he said. "Tonight has a theme." Her gaze did not waver. "Will you be my husband?" she asked for the rest of this evening. The words were calm, but the room seemed to tilt again, as if someone had knocked the sound sideways. The hostess froze behind her podium, lips parted. A server carrying a tray of drinks slowed in place. Somewhere near the bar, a glass tapped too hard against another. Evan blinked. "I am sorry," he said carefully. "Your what?" "Husband," she repeated. "For tonight. Just tonight. Sit with me. Pretend we came together. Pretend this is our anniversary. I do not care what. I just need you at that table with me." A man in an expensive suit standing near the bar turned his head. His companion followed his stare, eyes widening. A couple at a nearby table leaned in interest, bright. Evan felt heat rise to his face again from his collar up to his ears. He glanced around. Attention gathered, like static. "If this is some kind of joke," he said, "I have already hit my quota for those for the month." "I am not joking," she said. Her hand shifted on the clutch. That was the only sign she was not as steady as she sounded. Up close, he could see the thin line her lipstick had smudged along one corner, and the faint smear of mascara beneath one eye that had not been there when she walked in. "No one put you up to this?" he asked. "No," she said. "No cameras, no dare, no prank show." She lifted her chin a little. "I have had more than enough of people playing games with my life," she added. Something in her tone made him pause. He looked into her eyes. They were dark clear, and behind the clarity there was an exhausted kind of panic, the kind a person gets only after holding it back for a long time. "Why me?" he asked. "You just got humiliated," she said plainly, "in front of a room full of strangers. And you did not make it worse for anyone. You did not insult her. You did not sink into the floor. You just tried to leave quietly." He shifted, uncomfortable. The last thing he wanted was his embarrassment narrated. "That was not kindness," he said. "That was self-preservation." "It was both," she replied. "Most people in this place would have made a scene. You did not." She looked down at his hands, which were empty, then at her own wrapped around the clutch. "I need someone who is not trying to impress anyone right now," she said softly. "I need someone who does not see me the way everyone else here does." He let the words settle. In the reflection on the glass next to them, he saw the two of them side by side, his dark coat and her red one, the city lights beyond them smearing into streaks. He let out a faint, disbelieving breath. "You picked me based on my performance in the category of being dumped," he said. The edge of her mouth lifted real this time. "I picked you because you looked like you knew how to survive things," she said. The door creaked a little under the pressure of the wind. Cold air kept slipping through the gap and sneaking around Evan's ankles. Behind them, the hostess cleared her throat softly. "Ms." she began, not sure how to address the woman. The woman glanced over her shoulder. "Can you give us 1 minute?" she asked. "Of course," the hostess said quickly. The woman turned back to Evan. "Please," she said, "sit down with me. If after 10 minutes you want to leave, I will not stop you. You can tell everyone I am crazy. You can never think about me again. But right now I cannot sit at a table alone." Her voice dropped on the last part. The word alone landed between them. Evan looked at her another long second. At the damp ends of her hair, at the small jewel on her earlobe, catching the light at the faint trembling in her fingers where they curled around the clutch. He could have said it was too weird. He could have pushed through the door into the cold and told himself it was not his problem. Instead, he heard Leo's voice in his head. "You always tell me to be myself when I am scared." Right now, himself was a man who hated the look he had seen in her eyes. He let out another breath slower this time. "Okay," he said, "I will sit with you." Relief washed over her features so quickly it almost startled him. Her shoulders loosened just a fraction, as if she had been holding them tight for hours. "Thank you," she said, "for not walking away." He nodded once. "You might still regret it," he said, trying to lighten the moment. "I am already here," she replied. "Regret is wasted on this evening." She stepped aside to let the door close fully. The seal met, and the draft at his feet vanished. The sounds of the restaurant swelled back to their normal level, clinking glasses and soft music filling in the space. They walked side by side past the hostess stand. The woman did not offer a name, and Evan did not ask. It felt like one more thing balanced on a scale that was already too full. The server who had shown Evan to his table earlier appeared again as if summoned. "Right this way," he said. They followed him through the maze of tables. Evan was acutely aware of eyes tracking them, of whispers stitched into the air after they passed. At one table, a woman with diamond studs leaned closer to her companion lips, moving fast. At another, a man in a navy suit let out a short, amused puff of air and shook his head. The server stopped at the same table by the glass. "Here we are," he said. The woman in red glanced around once, brief but sharp, taking in the view the empty chair, the fresh napkin. Then she slipped out of her coat. Underneath, she wore a black dress that caught a dozen shades from the lights above. She handed the coat to the server, who held it carefully, almost reverently, though he had no idea why he was suddenly more careful. Evan pulled out the chair for her. It was a small gesture, one he had only ever seen in movies, but his hands did it on their own. She sat smoothing the skirt under her, then looked up at him. He took his seat across from her. The city stretched behind her like a painted backdrop, small windows winking on and off in the tall buildings. On the table between them, the candle flickered, its flame reflected in the glass wall, beside them two small points of light hovering over the city. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The candle between them gave off a thin thread of smoke that smelled faintly of beeswax. A string quartet played somewhere near the bar, a soft version of a carol that melted into the general hum. "Thank you," she said at last, "for saying yes." "You made it sound serious," Evan replied. "I figured I should respond accordingly." A hint of humor flashed in her eyes. "It is serious to me," she said. Then she caught herself. "I am sorry that sounds dramatic." He lifted one shoulder. "Tonight seems to be built for that." She let out a breath that could have been a laugh. "I am Natalie," she said. "Since you are my husband for the evening, you should probably know that much." "Natalie," he repeated. "I am Evan." "I know," she said. His eyebrows moved up a little. "The hostess said your name when I came in," she explained. "Right," he said. "That makes sense." A server appeared beside them with two menus. "Good evening," he said. "Can I get you started with something to drink?" Natalie did not look at the menu. Her eyes stayed on Evan. "What are you having?" she asked. He glanced at the wine list and then at the glasses on nearby tables. The last thing he wanted was to ask the price of anything. "Water is fine," he said. "Sparkling or still?" the server asked. Tap Evan replied. There was the briefest pause. The server nodded politely. "And for you, ma'am?" he asked Natalie. "Whatever he is having," she said. "Tap water. And maybe later we will look at the wine." The server inclined his head and moved away. "You did not have to match my budget," Evan said. "I did not do it for that," Natalie replied. "I am trying to remember what regular feels like." He studied her. Close up, she did not look like someone who did things halfway. The dress, the coat, the simple bracelet at her wrist that caught the light in a discreet way. He could not imagine her standing in a line at the grocery store, deciding whether the coupon was worth it. "So," he said, "what do I tell people you do if they ask about my wife?" She almost smiled. "Depends on who is asking," she said. "If it is my father, you say I am a reliable asset." He pulled back a little. "You are joking." "Only a little," she replied. "He would probably prefer strategic investment." "And what do you say?" Evan asked. She looked down at the menu for the first time. The candlelight made little shadows under her lashes. "I say I work in finance," she said, which is technically true. "I sit in glass rooms and talk to men who own too many suits about what our next move should be. They listen when my projections make them money. They stop listening when I talk about anything else." He thought of his own world, forklifts and pallets and people in neon vests who said everything they thought, whether anyone asked or not. "And if it is not your father asking," he said. "If it is not my father," she said slowly, "I wish I could say I teach first graders how to read. That was the plan once." She set the menu down without really having looked at it, the corners of her mouth bent, not quite sad and not quite bitter. But I am not doing that, she concluded, so I do not say it. The server returned and set 2 glasses of water on the table. The candle flame wobbled from the small disturbance of air. What about you? Natalie asked. What do I tell people my husband does? He wrapped his fingers around the cool glass. I drive other people around the city, he said, sometimes all night. I pick up their stories and drop them off and try not to take too much home. Then I move boxes in a warehouse so that things arrive at doorsteps in time to make somebody happy. That sounds like more than one job, she said. It is what it takes, he replied. To take care of your son, she said. He did not remember mentioning Leo, then realized Tara had put it in his profile. Yeah, he said. Leo. He is 6. He thinks this place looks like a spaceship. She glanced around at the glass dome at the reflections of the city. He is not wrong, she said. Her expression softened. He is at home, she asked. At his grandmother's, Evan said. There will be cookies and bedtime negotiations. You trust her, Natalie said. Yes, he answered. She has known me longer than anybody. Must be nice, she murmured. He heard something in that and filed it away. So, he said, shifting a little, how does a person get to the point of needing a stranger as a husband on Christmas Eve? She laughed once short and without much humor. You know those family movies where someone stands up in a room full of relatives and says they are not going to follow the plan after all, she said. And everyone is upset, but in the end they hug it out under a tree. He nodded. Remove the hugging, she said. Multiply the money by a lot. Replace the tree with a portfolio meeting. That is close. He tried to picture it. Ballrooms, waiters, champagne. People in clothes that cost more than his car. Was it a party, he asked. She nodded. An engagement party. He took that in. Congratulations, he said automatically. Thank you, she replied. Except I left. She lifted her water and took a slow sip. The glass clicked softly against her teeth before she set it down. They booked a hotel ballroom, she went on. They lit it like a magazine spread. There were ice sculptures shaped like our initials. People flew in from 3 time zones. There were cameras. There were speeches about what a powerful merger this would be. She looked straight at him now. Notice I said merger, she added, not marriage. He understood more than she said. The groom is very suitable, she continued. Polite, educated, photogenic. His family runs a fund that my father admires. We look good together in pictures. We are very aligned on everything that looks good on paper. Except, Evan said. Except I do not love him, she said. The words were flat, almost simple. And I am fairly sure he does not love me, she added. He loves the way it all lines up. That is a lot of ice sculptures for someone you do not love, Evan said. She huffed a small breath. My father loves gestures that do not melt on his side of the balance sheet. Evan thought of Leo telling him not to yell at the toaster. It felt like a different universe. What did you do? He asked. I stood there, she said. I listened to my father tell everyone how proud he was. I listened to my future father-in-law talk about shared vision. I looked at the room and realized every person there wanted this except me. Her fingers moved, tracing the ring finger on her left hand where nothing sat. The skin there was a bit paler, a faint circle. So, I went to the ladies' room, she said. I took off the ring. I held it for a minute. Then I put it in my clutch. I walked out the service exit. I kept walking. I did not take my coat or my phone. I just left. She said it simply, but he could hear the echo of the choice in each word. How far did you walk? He asked. Far enough for my toes to complain in these shoes, she said. Far enough that I ended up here instead of turning back. He looked at her, red coat folded over the back of the empty chair beside them. The fabric still held a few stubborn snowflakes that had not yet melted. You could have called someone, he said. Everyone I could call was inside that ballroom, she replied. Or they would have taken me straight back to it. A movement near the corner of the room tugged at her attention. An older man in a dark blazer had turned in his chair to look at her more closely. His companion, a woman with silver hair twisted up in a smooth knot, followed his gaze. The man squinted, then pointed slightly, not quite subtle. Is that her? He murmured. Evan could not hear all the words, but the shape of his mouth was readable. The woman beside him leaned in, her eyes widened. Oh my God, she whispered. It is. Several things happened at once. Phones came out at 2 different tables. A soft ripple of voices spread through the room. The hostess at her station near the elevator straightened, as if someone had called her name. A waiter approached their table, nervous energy in the tightness of his shoulders. Excuse me, he said to Natalie. I am very sorry. I just need to ask. Are you Natalie Chen? The name landed on the table like a dropped utensil. Evan looked at her, then at the waiter. Natalie did not flinch. Yes, she said. The word might as well have been a spark. conversations nearby spiked. Someone hissed the name to someone else. The string quartet continued to play, but one of the violinists kept glancing over. From Chen Holdings, a man at the bar said in a half-whisper that carried farther than he meant. Victor Chen's daughter, another voice answered. The restaurant manager appeared as if conjured. He was a trim man in a dark suit with a tie that matched the decor. His smile was wide and careful. "Ms. Chen," he said, stepping up to their table, "we are honored. If we had known you were joining us this evening, we would have prepared a private room. Anything you need, anything at all, please tell us." He barely glanced at Evan. His focus was entirely on Natalie, his posture a mix of eagerness and caution. Natalie looked at the manager, then at Evan. For a second, her face was unreadable. "Thank you," she said. "What I need is exactly this table and exactly this company." She nodded toward Evan. The manager hesitated, recalibrating. "Of course," he said. "If your father prefers a different setting, we can arrange something very quickly. I know Mr. Chen values privacy." "My father values control," Natalie said, still polite. "Tonight I value something else." The manager's smile wavered, then recovered. "As you wish," he said. "We are at your service." He inclined his head to Evan as an afterthought. "Sir," he added the word a little stiff. Evan returned the nod automatically. The manager retreated a few steps, but did not go far. He spoke quietly with the hostess, who looked from him to Natalie to Evan in quick darts of attention. At the table across the aisle, the older man who had first recognized her raised his glass slightly. "Ms. Chen," he said, "we did not expect to see you here, not tonight. Congratulations on your engagement." Natalie's jaw tightened for the briefest instant. "There is nothing to congratulate yet," she replied. His eyes flicked to Evan, taking in the coat the still full water glass. "And you are," he began. Natalie did not let him finish. "My husband," she said clear and firm, "for tonight." The word carried. The clink of cutlery paused at more than one table. The older man blinked, tipping his head back to look between them, confusion and curiosity wrestling on his features. Evan felt the attention swing again, heavier this time. A few people who had seen him sitting alone earlier now saw him through an entirely new lens. Their expressions shifted, some toward skepticism, some toward interest, one or two toward something close to envy. He sat very still. The older man recovered himself, gave a polite smile, and lifted his glass again. "Well," he said, "then I hope you both enjoy your evening." "Thank you," Natalie said. He turned back to his companion. The room slowly began to breathe again. The quartet moved on to another song. Natalie looked at Evan. "I was going to tell you," she said quietly, "that your father is the kind of person restaurant managers orbit around," he replied. "That my last name would turn this place into a stock ticker," she said. He let out a soft breath. "Is there any part of your life that does not come with that reaction?" he asked. "Not lately," she said. She picked up her water and took a drink, her hand steady now. "I did not drag you into this to make a scene," she added. "I really did just want someone to sit with me. And to call your husband when convenient," he said. Her cheeks colored. "I am sorry," she said. "That was selfish." He searched her face. There was pride there, and an old kind of exhaustion, and beneath both a flicker of something like hope that made no sense to him yet. He leaned back slightly in his chair. "Seems like I married above my pay grade," he said. The corner of her mouth curved. "Maybe for once," she said, "I did too." For a while, they just let the noise of the restaurant fill the space between them. The server returned with a new kind of energy posture, straighter smile, a little brighter. "Have you decided what you would like this evening?" he asked. Natalie glanced at the menu without really reading. "What is good?" she asked. "Everything is excellent," he said automatically, then caught himself. "The roasted salmon is popular. So is the short rib." She looked at Evan. "Do you like salmon?" she asked. "I like food," he said. "Salmon is on that list." She closed her menu and handed it back. "We will have one of each," she said. "And whatever vegetables the chef is proud of tonight." "Of course, Ms. Chen," the server replied. "And if you change your mind about wine, we have some very special bottles." "We will see," she said. He disappeared. Natalie let out a breath. "It is like watching people change channels," Evan said. "What is?" she asked. "The way they look at you now that they know your last name," he said. "It flicks from one thing to another." She tilted her head, considering. What was it before she asked? He thought back to the first moment she had stepped through the door, before anyone knew who she was, when she was just the woman in the red coat asking him to stay. Curious, he said, maybe a little impressed by the coat. And now she pressed. "Now, half the room is mentally checking their portfolio," he replied, "and the other half is pretending not to stare." She looked around as if testing his words. A man at a table by the bar quickly dropped his gaze to his plate when her eyes passed over him. Natalie turned back to Evan. "What channel are you on?" she asked. He shifted his water glass away from the edge. I am still on the one where a stranger asked me to be her husband, he said. That is keeping me pretty busy. Her mouth curved. Fair enough, she said. A small plate appeared between them, delivered by a different server. 2 delicate bites of something on toasted bread arranged like an art project. An amuse-bouche from the kitchen, the server said, with our compliments. Thank you, Natalie said. The bites tasted of lemon and herbs and something smoky. The flavors felt sharp after the bland air of the evening so far. Nobody sends me extra food because of my last name, Evan said. Does anyone send you extra food at all? She asked. Leo puts his peas on my plate, he said. That counts. Her smile reached her eyes this time. Tell me about him, she said. He hesitated out of habit. Years of keeping his private life in compartments had made him careful. Then he saw the way she listened, not waiting for her turn to talk, but actually listening. He likes building things, Evan said. Spaceships mostly. Cities made of pieces that do not fit together until they do. He thinks gravity is a suggestion. Smart kid, she said softly. He is quiet around new people, Evan went on. But once he trusts you, he talks. A lot. About everything. His brain runs ahead of his mouth. Does he know about tonight? She asked. He knows I am eating at a fancy place, Evan said. And that I am meeting someone. And he told you not to embarrass him, Natalie guessed. He told me to be myself, Evan said. And that if they do not like that, they are wrong. That is a good line, she said. You should keep that. He smiled faintly. I stole it from him, he said. She traced the rim of her glass with her fingertip, watching the water jump a little under the movement. And his mother, she asked quietly. The question did not surprise him. People around kids asked it sooner or later. She had the grace to ask it gently. She died when he was born, he said. Complications. He did not decorate the word. It was heavy enough by itself. I am sorry, Natalie said. Me too, he replied. Blad did. He stared past her shoulder for a moment into the dark glass where their reflection hovered over the city. He saw a younger version of himself for an instant standing in a sterile hospital corridor, hands empty and useless. I thought I knew Tyre before that, he said. I did not. He took a sip of water. We brought him home, and the apartment was too quiet and too loud. At the same time, he went on, I was afraid of everything. The stove, the stairs running out of money. Every sound he made at night felt like an alarm. How did you do it? She asked. She asked. I did not have a choice, he said simply. So, I got up. I changed diapers wrong. I made formula wrong, and then I made it right. I drove more, lifted more boxes. I messed up a lot. He survived me anyway. Her eyes softened. Does anyone help you? She asked. My mother, he said. She does what she can. Watches him when I do nights. Sends us home with food in containers that I am not allowed to return. He thought of Leo asleep on her couch, the smell of vanilla in the air, the way his mother had looked at him at the door. And you, he asked Natalie, who helps you? She looked down at her hands. Her nails were neat, a pale color, no chips. When she answered, her voice had an edge of something he had not heard yet from her. My assistant makes sure I do not miss flights or meetings, she said. My stylist makes sure I do not embarrass anyone in photographs. My father makes sure every decision I make has a number attached. That is not what I meant, Evan said. She knew. She nodded once slow. I know, she said. No one then. Silence pressed in for a second, thicker than the rest. What about your mother? He asked carefully. A shadow moved across her face. She died 3 years ago, she said. Cancer. I am sorry, he said. So am I, she replied. She was the only person who ever asked me what I wanted that had nothing to do with a quarterly report. The server returned with their meals. The plates were set down with quiet precision. Steam rose from the short rib. The salmon glistened under a thin glaze. For a while they focused on the food. The tastes were new to Evan. The meat fell apart under his fork, rich and tender. The vegetables had that perfectly cooked snap that he never quite managed at home. This is really good, he said. I am glad something about tonight is what it was advertised to be, Natalie said. He saw her pick around the edges of her plate, at first appetite wavering. Then some of the color came back to her cheeks as she ate. So, he said when they were a few bites in, when you were not being strategic, what did you want to teach? She smiled to herself. Little kids, she said, first or second grade. The ones whose shoes are always on the wrong feet. The ones who still think books are magic. Books are magic, he said. I agree, she said, but when they say it, no one rolls their eyes. He pictured her standing at a tiny whiteboard writing out letters, kneeling beside desks. It fit her in a way the ballroom did not. What stopped you? He asked, though he already knew the outline of the answer. My father, she said simply. He did not send me to good schools so I could earn a salary that would not impress him. What did he say? Evan asked. That I had a gift for numbers, she said. That I could do more. That I was wasting my potential if I spent my days teaching fractions to 7-year-olds. And what did you say back? He asked. I said nothing, she admitted. I signed the papers for my first internship at the company. I told myself I would quit after a year after I had saved enough to go my own way. What happened? He asked. I was good at it, she said. People praised me. They called me sharp and valuable. They offered promotions. Suddenly there were more meetings, more trips, more deals. The idea of walking away started to feel like throwing something away. She set her fork down. And then my mother got sick, she said. Being at the office felt like the only thing holding everything together. So I stayed. She picked up her water, then set it down without drinking. She used to ask me if I was happy, she said. Right up until the end. I told her I was fine. She did not believe me, but she let it go. Evan felt something twist in his chest. What would you tell her now? He asked. That I am tired, she said, and that I am scared that if I stop running, I will not recognize whatever life is left. The glass wall beside them showed the city in miniature, all those separate windows lit or dark. In their reflection, Natalie's face was superimposed over a building with its top floors darkened festive lights lower down. I used to come up to the roof of our building with her, Natalie said, before she got sick. We would look at the city and she would make up stories about the people in the lit windows. What kind of stories? He asked. She would point to one and say that one is a painter waiting for someone to come home, or that one is a family wrapping presents badly. That one is a woman who just got good news, Natalie said. She always imagined them doing something that mattered to them, even if it was small. And she imagined that for you too, Evan said. Yes, Natalie said, which is why I could not look at her near the end when she asked if I was happy. I did not want her to see the answer. Something moved in the crowd behind them. A couple walked by and Evan heard a whispered, "That is her right there," followed by a soft hush. Natalie tapped one fingernail against the table. I was not planning to say any of that tonight, she said. I was not planning to drink tap water at a place that charges people for looking at the view, he answered. The corner of her mouth lifted. Did you ever want something that big, she asked. I mean a life that looks nothing like what you have. Sometimes I think about what it would be like to have one job, he said. To come home before dark. To go to every school thing instead of some of them. That feels pretty big from where I am sitting. Would you change it? She asked. asked. He thought of Leo, of their cramped apartment, of the Lego cities on the rug. I do not know, he said. If anything in that chain had gone differently, there is a chance I would not have him. That is not a trade I would make. Her gaze softened again. You really love him, she said. He looked almost offended. Of course I do, he said. I mean, I know parents love their kids, she said quickly. I just do not hear a lot of people say it, like it is the most obvious thing in the world. He shrugged. It is the only thing that feels simple, he said. They ate a little more in companionable quiet. Across the room, the manager murmured with a waiter. Evan saw a small cluster of staff near the bar, their heads tilted in the direction of Natalie and himself. He wondered what version of the story they were telling. Do you regret it? He asked. She looked up. Regret what? Walking out, he said. Leaving the ring in your bag, whoever he is in that ballroom waiting. Her eyes went to the glass again, but her focus was far beyond it now. If I had stayed, she said slowly, I would have regretted that every day. If I go back, I want it to be because I chose something, not because I could not imagine anything else. That sounds like someone who knows what she wants, he said. It sounds like someone rehearsing a speech she is not sure she will be able to give, she said. The string quartet shifted into another song. A server refilled their water. Somewhere a bottle popped softly. Natalie watched a flake of wax sliding down the side of the candle. Have we met before? She asked suddenly. Evan blinked. I do not think so, he said. I would remember meeting a woman who recruits husbands at the door. She smiled, but it looked distracted. No, not like this, she said. I mean years ago. A different night. Different version of both of us. He sifted through his memory, through the hundreds of faces from the back seat of his car, the quick hellos and goodbyes. I drive a lot of strangers around, he said. It all smears together after a while. Maybe, she said softly, maybe not. He watched her as she said it, the way her fingers folded together on the table, as if she was holding on to something only she could see. What are you thinking of? He asked. Natalie drew in a small breath. The candle flame reflected in her eyes. 3 years ago, she said. Winter, late, on the east side. I was sitting at a bus stop that no bus ever came to at that hour. Evan felt a faint pull in his chest like a string being tugged. Okay, he said. My mother had died that morning, she went on. Everyone was already talking about what she left behind. Not her books or her scarves or the stupid ceramic penguin collection in the kitchen. The money, the shares, the voting rights. Her mouth tightened. They were arguing over numbers while she was still in the room. She said, "I could not breathe, so I left. I walked and walked until the hospital vanished and the buildings changed and the air hurt my face." His mind supplied images without his permission. Dark sidewalks, snow piled on the curb, yellow streetlights turning flakes into falling dust. "I stopped at a bus shelter on Lexington and 96th, she said. "I did not have my phone. I did not have a coat. I just sat down on the plastic bench and tried to remember how to breathe." Evan's grip on his water glass shifted. Lex and 96th. The name rang in his head with the clank of train tracks. "I told myself I would get up when the next bus came," Natalie said. "Or when I could feel my fingers again. Whichever happened first." She gave a small, humorless laugh. "Neither did," she added. He saw it now. Snow drifting sideways. An almost empty street. A woman on a bench under glass dress, two thin arms wrapped around herself, hair sticking to damp cheeks. He was not there yet, but he could feel himself getting closer. Cars went by, she said. Cabs with their lights on. People on their way somewhere else. No one stopped. I did not blame them. I would not have stopped either. I looked like trouble. Her eyes were somewhere else now, beyond the dome, beyond the lights. And then this beat-up sedan pulled up right in front of the shelter, she said. No app, no call. The driver rolled down his window and asked if I was all right. She looked straight at him. "You said it exactly like that," she said. "Are you all right?" Like it was possible the answer could be yes. The restaurant seemed to hush around them. The string quartet blurred into the background. The chatter at nearby tables dipped as if some current had shifted. Evan's heart hit his ribs a little harder. He saw his own hand in his memory, reaching to lower a window smeared with salt. He saw knuckles red from gripping the wheel all day. "I remember stopping," he said slowly. "I saw someone at the shelter and thought, that is not a place to sit in that weather." "You got out of the car," she said. "You did not just talk through the glass. You stood there in the snow in that terrible brown jacket, and you held out a scarf." Evan glanced down at the table, as if the scarf might have appeared there. In his mind, it was bright red against the gray night, the knit soft from years of washing. "It smelled like detergent and French fries," she said. "You told me you had a son who hated wearing it, but you were bigger than he was, and you would survive without it for one night." His throat went dry. He swallowed. "I told you I was fine," she said. "You looked at me like you did not believe a word." "You were shaking," he said quietly. "Your hands. I remember your hands." On the table now, her fingers lay still. He could almost see the echo of that night in the way she held them. "You asked where I needed to go," she said. "I said I did not know. That I just needed to be anywhere but there." Evan saw the map in his mind the way he had scrolled through options on his phone and then put it down. "You told me about a small hotel a few blocks away," she said. "You said the rooms were cheap and the walls were too thin, but the heat worked." He nodded once, memory slotting into place. "You opened the back door of the car," she said. "You did not touch me. You did not try to pull me in. You just held the door and waited until I moved. You were walking like your knees might give out," he said. "I thought if I tried to hurry you, you would fall apart." She smiled small and sad. "I got in," she said. "You turned the heat all the way up. You did not ask what happened to me. You did not do that thing people do where they try to guess from your dress and your shoes who you are and what you did wrong." He remembered the silence in the car, the way snow had slapped against the windshield, how her reflection had floated faintly in the rearview mirror, eyes wide and far away. "You drove me to the hotel," she said. "You walked me into the lobby. You stood near the door and waited while I checked in. I remember the clerk looking at you and then at me with this knowing look, like he thought you were my boyfriend or something." Evan felt his face warm. "I did not want to leave until I was sure they gave you a room," he said. "And then you left," she said. "I tried to pay you more. You said no. You said just rate me 5 stars if you remember later." He let out something between a laugh and a breath. "That sounds like me," he said. "You did not ask my name," she said. "You did not flirt. You did not say it was fate. You just handed me the key card that the clerk had pushed across the desk, nodded once and told me to sleep." He could see the lobby in his mind now, fluorescent lights, a dying plant, the smell of old coffee. His shoes squeaked on the tile as he had turned back toward the door. "You left the scarf on the back seat," he said. "I found it the next morning." She nodded. "I thought about calling the service to ask if there was a way to send a thank you," she said, "or to get the driver's name. But my mother's funeral was 2 days later. Meetings started after that. Time slid away. Her eyes shone, but she blinked, and the wetness steadied. I kept telling myself I would do it next week, she said. Next month. I never did. So, you became this incomplete thing in my head. The stranger who treated me like a person when everyone else was treating me like a vote. Around them, the restaurant had gone almost unnaturally quiet. People were not pretending not to listen anymore. At the table behind Natalie, a woman had her chin in her hand, watching openly. The older couple from earlier had stopped eating entirely. Evan felt the weight of their attention, but it landed softer now. I remembered your eyes, Natalie said, and your voice. The way you said you do not have to be strong tonight, you just have to be warm. I remembered the red scarf. For weeks after, every time I saw someone with one, I wondered if it was you. Evan thought of Leo that very morning, red scarf crooked around his neck, complaining that it made him itchy. I still have it, he said. I know, she replied. He blinked. How, he asked. Because the first thing I noticed about you tonight was the faint line of red lint on your coat, she said. And the way you smelled a little like coffee and the inside of a car. He huffed out a low sound. Romantic, he said. It was to me, she answered. She reached across the table, then slow enough that he could have moved away if he wanted. Her fingers slid over his hand and closed there, light but certain. The contact was simple, skin on skin, no fireworks, just a steadying weight. You saved me that night, she said. Not in a grand way, not forever, just enough that I could get to the next morning. He looked at their hands. His was broader knuckles, rough nails short and clean from habit. Hers was smaller, smooth, the faint indentation of a ring still visible. I did not do that much, he said. You did exactly enough, she said. The silver-haired woman at the nearby table spoke, then voice quiet but clear. Most people would have driven by, she said. For what it is worth. Evan glanced over. She gave him a small nod, eyes kind. People do not stop for other people without a reason anymore, she added. Her husband beside her murmured agreement. The younger man who had laughed at his earlier rejection shifted in his seat. His face was pink, his eyes anywhere but on Evan. After a moment, he pushed back his chair and stood. He walked over, napkin still in his hand. Hey, he said, stopping a step from their table. I laughed before. When that woman walked out on you, Evan felt Natalie's fingers tighten slightly around his. I remember, Evan said. The guy scratched the back of his neck. I was being a jerk, he said. I am sorry. That looked rough, and I made it worse. Evan held his gaze for a second, then nodded. Thanks for saying that, he said. The man nodded back relief, loosening his shoulders, and went back to his table. At another table, a server set down a dessert, and then pivoted toward them with a small plate in hand. This is from the chef, he said, placing the dish between Evan and Natalie, and from the staff. On the plate, a small chocolate tart sat in the center, ringed by dots of bright red sauce. The warmth from the kitchen still clung to it. You do not have to bring us anything, Evan said. We know, the server replied. We wanted to. He stepped away. The manager watched from across the room, arms loosely folded, his expression thoughtful instead of superior now. Natalie looked at the tart, then at Evan. This is new, she said. What is, he asked? Being next to someone and having people be kind to him because of me, she said, instead of the other way around. He did not know what to say to that. He picked up a spoon, cut into the tart, and held it out to her. Try it, he said. She leaned forward and took the bite. The spoon came away with a smear of chocolate. Her eyes closed briefly. That is ridiculous, she said, in a good way. He took a bite himself. It was rich and dark, and not too sweet, with a hint of something tart in the red sauce. Leo would say this spaceship has good fuel, he said. She laughed, a real sound that seemed to ease some knot in the air. At a table near the window, a woman in a green dress lifted her glass a little in Evan's direction. To kindness, she said softly. A few other glasses tilted in quiet agreement. No one shouted or made a toast. It was just a small ripple of acknowledgement that washed over him, and then settled. Natalie looked at him, her hand still on his. They did not do that when they recognized me, she said. They did something else, he said. They saw opportunity, she replied. They saw headlines and market moves. And now, he asked. Now they are trying on the idea that the man who drives a beat-up car and wears old shirts might be the most dignified person in the room, she said. He shifted, uncomfortable under the compliment. I am not sure about that, he said. I am, she answered. The candle had burned lower, wax pooled at its base. Outside, snow pressed against the glass, each flake vanishing on contact and leaving only a wet trail. Evan looked at their reflection again. Two figures at a small table, one in a black dress, one in a worn shirt, hands linked between plates and water glasses. 3 years, he said quietly. You carried that night around for 3 years. Yes, she said. It could have been anyone who stopped, he said. But it was you, she replied. So when I saw you sitting here tonight getting hurt for trying, and then standing up with your head still on straight, I recognized you, even before I knew you. He let out a breath he did not know he had been holding. I did not think that night mattered that much, he admitted. It mattered to me, she said. Enough that when I finally decided to walk out of my life this evening, the only thing I knew I needed was to find that feeling again. To sit next to someone who did not want anything from me, but for me to be warm and safe for a few hours. She squeezed his hand once firm. So here we are, she said. He looked down at their joined hands, then out at the snow, then back at her. Here we are, he agreed. The quiet between them did not last. Natalie's clutch vibrated against the table, a small jump that rattled the metal clasp. Then it did it again. And again. A steady insect buzz against the wood. She closed her eyes for a second. I forgot I did not turn it off, she said. You do not have to answer it, Evan said. If it were anyone else, I would not, she replied. But when my world catches fire, it tends to spread. She flipped the clasp open and pulled out her phone. The screen lit her face from below. A row of notifications stacked up. Dad? Where are you? Marcus, people are asking questions. Dad. This is not the time. Unknown. Ms. Chen's security is tracking your card. Are you safe? Dad, do not make a spectacle. Her jaw clenched. She locked the screen without replying and set the phone face down. You are popular, Evan says. I quietly. I am a loose asset, she answered. They do not like those. Security is tracking your car. Your card, he asked. I walked out of a hotel where everyone has tabs on everything, she said. It would not take much to notice a charge at a restaurant I have never been to before. Will they come here? He asked. They will send someone, she said. It is what I would do if I were my father. The idea of someone walking in here and claiming her like a misdelivered package did something unpleasant to his stomach. How long does that give us? He asked. She glanced at her watch, a slim band of metal that caught the candlelight. 20 minutes, she said. Maybe 30 if there is traffic. He nodded slowly. Then we should use them, he said. Her mouth twitched. You sound like a calendar reminder, she said. I am very efficient, he replied. What do normal people talk about when they steal 20 minutes from their life? She sat back in her chair, letting her shoulders drop. Movies, she said. Music. Food that is bad for you. Embarrassing stories. Okay, he said. I can handle at least 2 of those. He wiped his fingers on his napkin. Favorite movie, he said. Real answer, not the one you put in interviews. Her eyes flicked up, surprised. I do not put movies in interviews, she said. If you did, he said. She thought for a second. I am supposed to say something serious, she said. An Oscar winner. Something foreign. The truth is, I will watch any animated film with talking animals. Twice. That feels very dangerous, he said. Do not tell my board, she replied. He smiled. Leo is going to want your list, he said. He thinks every animal in a suit is peak cinema. Sometimes he is right, she said. What about you? She asked. Favorite movie? He shrugged. Depends, he said. The ones I loved when I had time to sit through a whole movie are different from the ones I watch over Leo's shoulder now. Pick one, she pressed. An old one my wife liked, he said after a moment. Small town, nothing really happens, but everyone knows each other. It felt boring when I was 20. Now it feels like breathing. Do you still watch it? She asked. Sometimes, he said. When Leo stays at my mom's and I forget I can sleep. She nodded as if that made perfect sense. Music, she asked. Whatever the radio gives me between rides, he said. And whatever Leo likes that week. Right now, it is songs from that movie with the Ice Queen. Over and over, she said. So many times, he replied. He watched some of the tension leave her face as they traded small pieces of themselves across the table. What about food that is bad for you? She said. You mentioned that category. Burgers from the place down the street that looks like a health inspection waiting to happen, he said. They taste like childhood. You. Instant noodles in a paper cup, she said without shame. In the microwave. At midnight, when everyone thinks I am asleep. He grinned. Seems like we are both chasing nostalgia, he said. You are chasing something you never had, she countered. I am chasing something I lost. Her fingers went to the water glass, then dropped. How many school things have you missed? She asked. He did not have to ask what she meant. More than I want, he said. My mother records them on her phone sometimes. I watch them on my break with fluorescent lights buzz singing backup. Does he get mad? She asked. He gets quiet, Evan said. That is worse. I put the dates on the fridge and try to build routes around them. It does not always work. My father made it to one of my school plays, she said. He stood in the back and left before the curtain call. He told me later he saw enough. I am sorry, Evan said. He sent flowers, she said, to the house, with a card that said happy opening night. I got them 3 days later. He pictured a small Natalie standing by a kitchen counter staring at a vase. What about you? He asked. Besides noodles at midnight, what is something that feels yours? She took her time answering. I like grocery stores, she said finally. He blinked. That is specific. This is specific, he said. When I was in college and no one knew my last name yet, I loved wandering the aisles, she said, comparing brands, reading labels, watching families negotiate over cereal. That sounds like a sociology paper, he said. It felt like a place where everyone was on the same level, she replied. You cannot buy your way to a better can of tomatoes. I do not know, he said. Organic is its own class system. She laughed a small, quick burst. True, she said, but it does not say billionaire on the sign. That is the point. He took that in. When was the last time you went? He asked. A real grocery store, she said. I cannot remember. The house is stocked by a service. My assistant sends lists. It all shows up in boxes. I miss the part where people wander around in sweatpants and argue about pasta. You could change that, he said. Maybe, she said, if 3 security guys and a driver in a black car are not a giveaway. Her gaze drifted past him, then toward the glass. Evan turned in his chair. Outside, far below, Fifth Avenue glittered. Cars moved in long lines. People in coats hugged themselves against the cold. A light dusting of snow softened edges. Then a black SUV turned slowly onto the block. Its headlights cut a bright path through the falling flakes. It pulled into a space in front of the building and clicked on its hazard lights. Twin orange flashes reflected in the glass in front of them. It could have been any car. There were plenty of black vehicles on this street, but something about the way it sat there, engine idling, lights steady, made the hairs on Evan's arms lift. Natalie watched it, her eyes narrowing slightly. Her phone buzzed again on the table, rattling against the wood. She flipped it over. A new message from her father stared up. We know where you are. Her thumb hovered over the screen. Then she locked it and set it away. Is that them? Evan asked. Probably a driver, and whoever drew the short straw, she said, to collect the runaway asset. He studied her profile. The candlelight highlighted the line of her cheek, the set of her mouth. You said you have 20 minutes, he said. They were optimistic, she replied. Do you want to leave another way, he asked. Backstairs, kitchen exit, for what she asked, so they can follow me to the next doorway. He had no answer. She looked back at him fully. Something had shifted behind her eyes. The fear was still there, but it sat beside something else now. A narrow, sharp line of resolve. I have been running for 3 years, she said quietly. From that bus stop. From the question my mother asked me. From every version of this conversation. I am tired. Snow slid down the outside of the glass in slow, crooked lines. The black SUV waited below a dark coin on the bright street. Natalie reached for her napkin, folded it with careful fingers, and placed it on the table. I should go down, she said. If I do not, they will come up, and this place does not deserve that. Evan watched her stand. Her chair scraped softly against the floor. She picked up her clutch and brushed an imaginary crease from her dress. She slipped her arms into the red coat the server brought, pulling it around her like armor. Against the black dress, the color seemed even deeper, a small blaze in the soft light. She looked at him. You do not have to come, she said. You have already given me more than I asked for. He rose from his chair anyway. I told you I would be your husband for tonight, he said. It feels wrong to stop at the dining room. A breath left her somewhere between a sigh and a laugh. You know this is not in the fine print, she said. I did not read the fine print, he answered. Her hand hovered in the space between them, the space they had bridged once already. He reached out and closed his fingers around hers. Then come with me, she said. They turned toward the entrance together, hands linked weaving between tables, and curious eyes heading for the elevator that would carry them down to the lobby and the waiting lights outside. The elevator doors slid shut behind them with a soft click. For a few seconds they were sealed in a narrow box of mirrors and chrome. Evan saw himself multiplied coat, a little too thin tie, slightly crooked. Beside him, Natalie's red coat flared at the hem, a bright streak against all the steel. Their joined hands looked almost like a trick of the light. The elevator began to move. The floor number glowed and changed. The cables hummed somewhere above. Neither of them spoke. Evan listened to the small sounds instead. Natalie's breath steady, but a little too shallow. The faint rustle of fabric when she shifted her weight. The soft tap of her heel when it touched the floor and lifted again. He watched their reflections rather than their faces. It felt easier that way. When the doors opened in the lobby, the smell hit him first. pine from the big tree near the windows, a sharper note of cold air leaking in every time the outer doors opened. The shine of the marble floor caught the overhead lights in hard gleams. The restaurant manager Harris stood near the podium as if he had been waiting. His smile reappeared instantly when he saw them. "Ms. Chen," he said, taking a small step forward. "Is everything all right? If there is any problem with your service, we can handle it discreetly." "There is no problem with your service," Natalie said. "You have been very kind." His gaze flicked quickly to Evan, then back. Evan could read the question there. "Do you need us to remove him? Do you want this man gone?" She did not give him time to ask. "We are just going outside for a moment," she said. "Fresh air." Harris nodded, though the lines at the corners of his mouth stayed tight. "If anyone asks," he said, "may I tell them anything specific?" "You may tell them I stepped out," she said. "That is all." "Of course," he replied. He stepped back. Natalie tightened her grip on Evan's hand and led the way toward the glass doors. As they approached, Evan could see the night in full. Fifth Avenue lay ahead, blurred by snow and headlights. The black SUV idled at the curb hazard lights, blinking a slow, patient orange. Its windows were dark. The engine noise was a low, steady growl. The doorman opened the door for them. Cold air rushed in sharp, as if it had teeth. It cut through the warmth of the lobby, brought with it the smell of exhaust and wet pavement. Natalie's shoulders rose once at the impact, then settled. They stepped out onto the slick sidewalk. The SUV's front door opened at once. A man climbed out. He wore a dark wool coat, a hat, gloves that looked too thin to be warm. His posture was straight without being stiff. His eyes moved over the scene, quickly taking it in. "Miss Chen," he said. "Good evening." His voice carried even over the hiss of the street and the whisper of snow. "Mr. Alvarez," Natalie said. So, she knew him. Of course she did, Evan thought. A person like her probably knew a lot of drivers by name. "Your father is concerned," Alvarez said. "The guests have noticed you are gone. He asked me to bring you back." His gaze flicked briefly to Evan. There was no open disdain there, just an efficient curiosity. "Who is this? Where did he come from?" "I am safe," Natalie said. "You can tell him that." "He will want to hear it from you," Alvarez replied, "in person." His eyes dropped to their hands. There was the smallest pause before he looked back up. "The photographers are already restless," he added. "Leaving now would help control the narrative." The words landed with practiced weight. Control. Narrative. They sounded like things Victor Chen said often. Snow gathered on the shoulders of Alvarez's coat and did not seem to bother him. The hazard lights blinked behind him, painting the reflected glass of the building in intermittent bands of orange. Natalie took a step forward. Evan moved with her so their hands did not break apart. "I am sure my father is very busy managing narratives," she said. "He can continue to do that without me for one evening." "Ms. Chen," Alvarez said, tone still pleasant. "You left without telling anyone. There are important people in that ballroom. They are asking questions. Mr. Chen would like to give them answers that do not involve scandal. I left because I could not breathe," she said. "That feels important too." He did not argue that point. His gaze slid once more to Evan. "And you are?" he began. Natalie's husband, Evan said before he could stop himself. The word was out. It hung in the cold air between them. He felt Natalie's hand give a tiny, startled jerk in his. Then he felt her fingers tighten, owning the choice. "For tonight," she added, "this is Evan." Something flickered in Alvarez's face. Surprise smoothed quickly under professionalism. "I see," he said. Behind them, through the tall glass of the building, Evan saw silhouettes gathering near the windows of the restaurant above. Small, dark shapes against the light looking down. He could not see faces from here, only the fact that they were there. Alvarez's breath steamed in front of him. He chose his next words carefully. "Mrs. Chen," he said, "I am only here to do my job. Mr. Chen asked me to bring you home. He did not specify how. I would prefer to do it in a way that is comfortable for you." "Then tell him I will come home when I am ready," she said. "Not because he sent a car, not because guests are waiting, because I decide to." His expression did not change much, but he shifted his weight as if adjusting to a new angle. "And the engagement?" he asked. "They are expecting an announcement tonight. There are arrangements." "The arrangements will keep," she said, "or they will not. Either way, I am not standing up in that room and promising myself to someone I do not love." The words came out clear. Her voice did not crack. The snow dusting her hair and coat gave her an almost fragile outline, but there was nothing fragile in the way she stood. "You can tell my father that," she added, "exactly how I said it." Alvarez studied her for a long second. His eyes stayed level. He was not a man who enjoyed being in the middle of a family war. Evan could see that, but he also did not look like someone who would pretend he had not heard what he had just heard. And if he insists, Alvarez asked, then he will have to come down here himself, she said. For a moment, no one spoke. A cab rolled past its tires, sending up a spray of slush. Someone laughed on the far side of the street. A siren wailed faintly in the distance and then faded. Evan felt Natalie's fingers shaking where they laced with his. Outwardly, she was composed. Up close, he could feel the tremor. He shifted his thumb slightly, not enough for anyone else to see, just enough to press against the back of her hand. She has made her choice, he said quietly. You heard her. Alvarez's eyes met his. There was a hint of something there now. Not quite respect, not quite annoyance. Maybe a mix of both. This is not about you, Alvarez said. It is about her, Evan replied. That is the point. A beat passed. The wind sent a small spray of snow across the pavement. The flakes landed on Evan's cheeks, cold pinpricks that melted at once. Alvarez inhaled once, then exhaled a small cloud of white. Ms. Chen, he said, I am going to report your words to your father exactly as you said them. I will also report that you are safe and not alone. Thank you, she said. In return, he went on, I would appreciate it if you respond when he calls. If not tonight, then soon. He is not used to silence. I will call when I have something to say that is not an apology, she said. He inclined his head. That was as much concession as either of them was likely to give. Alvarez opened the driver's door. Before he slid inside, he looked once more at Evan. Mr. Brooks, he said. Evan blinked. He had not heard his last name spoken since they had left the dining room. Yes, he said. Alvarez considered him. Drive carefully, he said. The roads are bad tonight. It was a small thing. It still surprised Evan more than it should have. I always do, he answered. Alvarez nodded, got into the SUV and pulled the door shut. The hazard lights clicked off. The engine revved, then the car eased away from the curb and merged into the slow river of traffic. Natalie let out a breath that seemed to come from somewhere near her shoes. Her hand slipped from his, then caught it again, not ready to let go yet. Up above, behind the glass of the restaurant, a few of the silhouettes moved away from the windows, satisfied that whatever show they had been waiting for was over. Are your legs shaking? Evan asked. A little, she said. Mine are, he admitted. Her mouth pulled into a small, stunned smile. I thought I was going to throw up on his shoes, she said. That would have really changed the narrative, he said. They stood there side by side for a moment, letting the cold bite at their faces. Snowflakes landed on Natalie's lashes and melted on contact. Evan watched one fall on the back of her hand, a tiny star that vanished instantly. You did not have to say anything, she said, to him. I did not say much, he replied. You said enough, she said. I am not sure I would have gotten the words out without you there. He looked at her, at the straight line of her shoulders, at the red coat bright against the muted city. You got them out just fine, he said. Her gaze shifted to the glass doors behind them. Inside, the lobby glowed warm, the tree lights blinking in soft patterns. A few people moved past the front desk, carrying shopping bags, collars turned up against the cold. Do you want to go back up? He asked. No, she said, not yet. They stepped away from the entrance a few paces down the sidewalk, where the awning shadow thinned. The city opened a little there. The wind found them more easily slipping through seams and collars. Cars crept along the street. The giant tree a few blocks away shimmered in the corner of his vision, a blur of color. The air smelled of wet stone traffic, someone's chestnuts roasting on a cart halfway down the block. Natalie tilted her head back and closed her eyes. Snow caught on her eyelashes again. She did not brush it away. I thought when I finally said it, she murmured, it would feel like being cut loose in space. And he asked, It feels like standing on the edge of a roof, she said, and realizing the ground is closer than you thought. He looked up too. The sky was a low, uniform gray. The flakes were small and steady, not dramatic, just persistent. He slipped his free hand into his coat pocket. His fingers brushed the corner of the wrapped book. A taxi splashed through a puddle near the curb. A couple hurried past, sharing an umbrella, glancing at Evan and Natalie with a flicker of curiosity, then moving on. Behind the glass above them, the dome of the restaurant shone like a snow globe. Inside it, people went back to their meals, their conversations, their plans. Out here, the air felt raw and clean, every breath a reminder that they were not made of polished stuffing and soft music. Evan turned his head to look at her. You all right? He asked. She opened her eyes. They were clearer than they had been when she walked into the restaurant. I am not sure yet, she said, but I am not where I was an hour ago. He nodded. That he is understood. For a moment, they just stood there in the falling snow, without a plan for the next 5 minutes, let alone the next day. Traffic thinned and swelled in waves. A bus sighed as it pulled up to a stop down the block doors opening with a hydraulic hiss, lights washing the street in a brief rectangle of harsh white. The smell of roasted chestnuts drifted over from a cart. Somewhere a car radio played a muffled Christmas song that did not quite reach them. Evan shifted his feet on the wet concrete. Cold crept up from his shoes. He peeled his hand away from Natalie's just long enough to rub his fingers together, then found her again. Her palm was chilly but steady. "I should get you a cab," he said. "Or call you a car that is not sent by people who make your life complicated." "I can call one," she said. "I am good at that part." He nodded. He believed her. "You need to get your son," she added. "If I keep you much longer, he will call the police on me." "He would ask if you are being nice first," Evan said. "Then he would call my mother, which is worse." Natalie smiled small but real. "Is she scary?" she asked. "When I am late, yes," he said. He reached into his coat and pulled out his phone. The screen glowed a soft blue in the night. 9:23. He had time, but not much. "I do not want this to be a strange story I tell myself I made up," she said suddenly. He looked over. "Which part?" he asked. "All of it," she said. "You. The restaurant. The driver who did not drag me back by my wrist. The part where I used my own voice." She let go of his hand and slipped her fingers into her clutch. When she pulled them out, she was holding a slim white card. There was no logo on it, just a name and a number in neat black print. She held it out. "This is mine," she said. "My personal number, not the office, not an assistant. If you text, it will be me." He hesitated for half a second, looking at the card rather than taking it. The letters of her name were crisp and simple. No title, no company. "You do not have to," she said. "I know tonight was a lot." He took the card between his fingers. The paper was thicker than he expected. "I am just considering how many background checks your security will run if I use this," he said. "If they do, that is their hobby," she answered, "not mine." He slid the card into his wallet, between a gas receipt and a worn punch card from the burger place that had only one stamp left to go. "You can't ignore it," she said. "Throw it away when you get home. Pretend it got wet in the snow. It will not hurt my feelings. Well, it will. But I will survive." Her tone was light, but her eyes were not. "I am not going to throw it away," he said. "You are sure?" she asked. "I come with hazard lights." "So do bridges," he said. "I still drive over them." She huffed out a breath that might have been a laugh. "I am going to try something hard after Christmas," she said. "Talking to my father like he is a person and not a storm. Untangling my life from a contract I did not write. I will be messy. It will probably be loud. When the dust settles, I would like to know if you still want to meet me in a place that sells coffee instead of ice sculptures." He imagined a coffee shop in Queens, scratched table's chalkboard menu. Natalie in her red coat at a corner table, hands wrapped around a mug instead of a crystal glass. "I do not drink coffee after 4, he said. "I stay awake too long." "They make tea," she said, "or hot chocolate." "Bum, hot chocolate." "That I can handle," he said. "So," she said, "will you let me buy you a hot chocolate in a future where I know how to be a person who leaves a ballroom and does not disappear into a sidewalk?" He watched her while she said it. The vulnerable pieces were visible now, not tucked away behind polish. "I can say yes to that," he replied. "Good," she said softly. Snow had settled on her shoulders again. He reached out without thinking and brushed a few flakes from her hair. They melted on his skin. "I should go inside and call a car before I freeze into a cautionary tale," she said. "I should go across the river and prove to my mother I did not get eaten by Manhattan," he said. They both looked up at the restaurant, then to where the rooftop dome caught the light. From here, the people inside were just shapes. Still, Evan could make out a cluster near one of the windows, faces pressed close to the glass for a second before they drifted away. Natalie followed his gaze. "Do you think they are still talking about us?" she asked. "Probably," he said. "People like a story that fits into an evening." "What story did they get?" she said. "That depends where they started watching," he said. "Some saw me getting dumped. Some saw you walking in. Some saw the bit with the car. And you," she asked, "what story do you hold? What do you have?" "Guy goes on blind date," he said. "Ends up married for 2 hours to a woman whose life does not make sense to him." "Divorced already," she said. "We are very modern." He smiled. "It was amicable," he said. Mostly she agreed. She looked past him down the block, where her world waited in the shape of a phone call she had not made yet. Then she looked back at him, at his coat that smelled faintly of car heater and laundry detergent at the wear along the edge of his collar. "You will go back to your son," she said. "You will be the same person you were this morning, but you will not be exactly the same. And you will go back to your father's house," he said, "and make it a little less his and a little more yours." "Something like that," she said. He checked his phone again. 9:33. He would hit the bridge right as the salt trucks did their rounds. I need to catch the uptown lane before it turns into a parking lot, he said. Go, she said. Leo is waiting. He took a small step closer. They were almost shoulder to shoulder now, facing each other under the soft halo of the awning light. Thank you, he said. For what, she asked. For the dinner, he said. For the story. For not leaving me sitting by that window thinking I was the saddest thing in the room. I do not think you have ever been the saddest thing in any room, she said, even when you think you are. She lifted her arms, then slow, giving him plenty of time to step back if he wanted. He did not. She wrapped them around his shoulders and pulled him in. He hugged her back. It was not dramatic. No spinning, no dipped waist. It was the embrace of two people who had both been tired for too long, leaning into each other for balance. He could feel her heartbeat against his chest. Steady. Fast, but steady. Her cheek was cold where it pressed against the side of his neck. His hands rested splayed across the back of her coat, fingers sinking into the thick fabric. Snowflakes landed on the back of his neck, cold dots that melted and slid under his collar. He closed his eyes for a second. Behind the glass above them, someone must have been watching. If they were all they would see was a man and a woman in the snow holding on for a moment longer than casual. When they let go, they stepped back at the same time as if some internal clock had started and ended in them both. Text me when you get home, she said. So I know the bridge did not win. All right, he said. You text me when you get wherever you are going, so I know you did not get talked into another party. Deal, she said. She reached for the door. The doorman opened it before she touched the handle. Warm light spilled out around her as she went inside. Just before the doors closed, she glanced back over her shoulder and met his eyes once more. Then she was gone, swallowed by the lobby. Evans stood on the sidewalk for another beat. Cars moved around him. A bus lumbered by, windows fogged, faces blurred. He pulled his collar up and turned toward the parking garage. The concrete stairwell smelled of oil and damp stone. His footsteps echoed. In the car, the seat was still slightly warm from earlier. He started the engine. The radio came on halfway through a song about snow and someone coming home. He pulled out into the slow stream of traffic and let it carry him toward the bridge. City lights slid across the windshield in long streaks. The wipers smudged them into softer lines. On the passenger seat, he set his phone and the small wrapped book. The brown paper had a tiny dent in one corner now. Leo's stick figures on the back grinned up at him from under the string. At the first red light, he unlocked the phone. There was a message from his mother. He is fine. Ate 3 cookies. Asks if you survived your fancy dinner. Evan smiled and typed back. On my way. Tell him yes. He hesitated, then tapped his contacts and added a new one. Natalie, no last name, just the number from the card in his wallet. His thumb hovered, then he typed, made it to the car. No ice sculptures in the garage. He hit send. The message slipped away into the invisible space where signals traveled over the city. By the time he reached the base of the bridge, the phone buzzed. Good. I am waiting on a sidewalk argument with a dispatcher. Tell your son I was nice. He snorted softly, the sound lost in the hum of the engine. Will do, he wrote. Do not let them put you on hold. He set the phone face down, both hands on the wheel, as he climbed onto the span. The river below was a dark ribbon. Snow fell in thicker curtains out here, away from the shelter of the tall buildings. Salt trucks rumbled in the opposite lanes, plows scraping sparks from the concrete. On the far side near the exit for the east side, his headlights swept past a bus stop. Glass walls, a bench, an ad peeling at the corner, a dusting of snow on the roof. For a second he saw another bus shelter superimposed on it, the one from 3 winters ago. A woman hunched on the bench, arms wrapped around herself. A young man in a tired car easing to a stop. The moment slid by as the car moved forward. The real shelter receded in the rearview mirror, just another piece of the city scrolling past. He drove on. Queens rose ahead, lower and darker, sprinkled with smaller lights. Somewhere in that sprawl was a warm apartment that smelled faintly of onions and crayons, a boy in pajamas probably fighting sleep. Evan reached across the seat and adjusted the wrapped book so it would not slide. His fingers brushed a few red threads clinging to his sleeve. Leo's scarf had left its mark. He smiled to himself, a small thing in the dim car, and turned the wheel toward home. Thank you so much for listening to today's story. If this story resonated with you or made you reflect, I'd love to hear your thoughts, so feel free to share them in the comments below. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you won't miss the next story.